All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Hendricks. Welcome to our next Expert Challenge session, this one focused around 3ds Max. We have a number of people in this particular session that we're working with. Some of them you'll be very familiar with. Some maybe are newer faces to you. I'd like to start off with Eddie Perlberg here off to my side, who is the new product manager for 3ds Max.
Hi, Sean.
And we have Michael Russo, who's also in the design side of 3ds Max, like not Max Design, but building the actual product. Just going to stumble over that.
Yeah, hello.
It's like,
We can cut that in post, right?
yes, exactly. We'll just remove that later.
Oh, hello.
We have Chris Murray, who's on my team at Autodesk. He's one of the technical specialists. And then we have Kelsey Simpson, who is one of the designers.
Lead designer.
The lead designer. Things are changing, people. So, Eddie, why don't we start with you? We gave a little more time to the Max session today because obviously things have been changing in the world of Max for the last
Yes.
little while. One of the obvious ones is you now becoming
Me.
product manager. So why
Right.
don't you give us a little grounding in that? But actually, before we dive in there, I do want to set a few of the ground rules for the event before I forget. Ground rule number 1, be nice. No slamming people in the chats, no any of that kind of stuff. Keep in mind, I'm going to gloss over questions if they obviously are going to take us an hour to try and answer. There's no point in us sucking up the entire thing to answer something difficult. So I'll probably bypass those. Also know that we can't say things about the future. God knows how many questions people saying, what are you doing in 2 years? What are you doing in 1 year? What's this feature doing? And as we always say every single time, and I know you hate hearing it and we hate having to say it a lot of the time, it's not us that makes us say it. It's a whole, there are rules involved here in any publicly traded corporation that prevent us from giving any future-looking statements.
Actually, Sean, there's two very easy and simple ways to keep this in mind. A, it's illegal, and B, it's for your protection. So being a publicly traded company, I can imagine that there are a number of you out there that do own Autodesk stock, and thank you very much. But for those of you who do, we need to make sure that you're protected from outrageous statements or even goodwill type of statements that maybe don't come to fruition and cause you financial harm. And the reality is, in the publicly traded world, there are people who intentionally hurt one another, and it's for your protection, not that Autodesk would do that, but to protect you from those that would do you harm. There are laws in place to protect you. So we live by those laws and guidelines. So it's just that simple, really.
Exactly. So Eddie, let's talk a little bit about the world of Max at the moment.
So as Sean said, I am the new product manager for 3ds Max. A little bit about myself. I've worked for Autodesk for the last 7 years in the media and entertainment division here at Autodesk. So some of us have talked at SIGGRAPH, some of us have talked at GDC, the Game Developer Conference, NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters Conference. I've taught and spoke at AIA and AU for I think 13 years. Before Autodesk. So always involving my life in the world of 3ds Max. Prior to that, I was CAD manager and visualization artist. I worked in motion graphics, so I did a lot of projects that were involved at a local sporting arena. I worked on a small faith-based video game for a local church. So I have quite an extensive background in a lot of different areas of 3ds Max. I purchased my first version of it at 2.5. I actually loaded it on when it was 3D Studio version 4. With all 15 discs, 5 1/4, remember? On a 486-66 with the turbo button. So my experience with Max goes back quite a ways. In fact, it's been such a part of my life that I incorporated it into one of my tattoos. So there's a Max logo on my body. So that should give you a kind of an indication to my commitment to this little endeavor we call 3ds Max. Coming into the position, I must admit to you that I shared a lot of the skepticism, a lot of the confusion, and a lot of the anger that maybe some of you feel when it comes to 3ds Max. And if I can assure you anything about that, I wouldn't have taken the position if it wasn't for the fact that I saw a true commitment a true change into the entire attitude about how 3ds Max fits into this ecosystem. So it really is a new world at Autodesk when it comes to 3ds Max. And I know that you've heard that before. And like I said, I shared that skepticism with you. But I can assure you that this time it truly is different. And one of the ways that I know that it is different is because of some of the people that I have surrounding me here today. The fact that Michael Russo is the person in charge of development, that we have a talent like Kelsey Simpson as one of our lead designers really indicates that there is a long and bright future for 3ds Max. So that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. So at this point, by all means, people please start asking questions in the chat box and we'll take those. But we did also ask for questions ahead of time. So over the last couple of weeks, people have been submitting questions on the area. So what I like to do is start with a few of those. That'll give everyone a chance to warm up, get comfortable, and start being a little less shy in the chat window. Never seems to fail. You can have 500 people in a chat and they're all like, I don't know what to say. So we'll try and get everyone by that with some warm up questions. So why don't we start off with, let's see here. Well, we can start with another question for Eddie here first, why don't we?
Okay.
So one of the questions was, how else are things going to be different in the world of 3ds Max in the future? So I guess basically saying we've talked about a lot of kind of vague things, but what are we concretely kind of doing differently right now?
Well, that's an excellent question. So thank you for that. There are a number of different areas that are different at Autodesk and in the world of 3ds Max that I can let you know about. First is that we're doing a lot when it comes to hearing what you have to say. And it's not that we didn't listen in the past, but there's a new emphasis about getting in touch with you guys. So now, about a month ago, we had what was a gunslinger event in Montreal where we invited experts and users in a number of different areas of 3ds Max, film and game and design visualization, design animation. Even the generalists were invited to come to Montreal and tell us what they see the future of Max to be and how can that best fit their needs. For those of you that are going to be attending the CAVE event and AU in Las Vegas in about a month or so from now, maybe you've already received an email invitation to invite you to participate in focus groups and user events, and we even are going to do some round tables. Kelsey and I both have sessions that are going to get you guys together to help hear that kind of thing. And then we're paying more attention to places like user voice. So if in fact you're in the software and you have an idea, you can always go to the user voice right there and post something so that we can understand what the software needs for you at that moment. So you don't even have to wait. And as a matter of fact, I just saw a report about the number of user voice elements that have been solved, Sean, and the list is quite extensive. One of the things that I was thinking about is maybe we shouldn't pull them down after they're fixed. So you can really start to see the grand list of things that we're paying attention to. And the list, it was kind of funny. One of the things that was up on User Voice was that we get Tom Hudson involved with the future of Max. Tom was one of the original developers of 3D Studio back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was using it. But it was kind of like, getting Betty White to host Saturday Night Live. So Tom Hudson is now a part of the team and speaking for the advancement and helping us with, some of these efforts. So it really is, again, a focus in on you guys and what you have to say. So, and then I don't want to talk forever because I know that we have a lot of great things to see, but there's another shift at Autodesk that I think that you need to be aware of. In the past, there was a focus on the software and the product. And now there is a focus on the industry. So there is now somebody in charge of film, and Corey and I talk on a constant basis about how Max can help fill your success in film. And then Frank DeLeese, the person that was in charge of Max before I took over, he didn't leave. He was actually elevated to being in charge of the games development. So how can Max be a part of that success story? So Frank and I meet on a constant basis to help shape the software for that. So there's this new emphasis about your success in the film, in games, in design animation, so that we come up with a better product for everybody. So just some of the things that are going on behind the scenes.
Perfect. So I've got one question here. After years of hearing that visual effects for film is equal to Maya, we have in past years artists and whole post-production houses doing VFX for film with 3ds Max. Will you finally be embracing that?
I'm a little confused as to your question, in that we recognize, like I said, that 3ds Max is the most used software for the creation of animations, film, games, design animations across the board. Where we have a great history and a great future ahead of us. I certainly do appreciate and hear that maybe what you're asking about, but I want you to remember that because we fit into so many of these different areas, it's not quite as simple as just if we focus just in on one element of that usage, we're denying or abandoning a number of different ones. And while people may be saying, yeah, I know I've been in that other one for a long time, again, what I'm telling you is there's a renewed interest in that, and I think that you'll start to see the impacts of that sooner and later. So it really is.
Yeah, and just to show as well, I mean, for instance, it was mentioned here, someone's talking about how 3ds Max was used a lot in Star Trek and stuff like that, and we did create the webinar just around Star Trek, actually, that I interviewed Adam Watkins at SIGGRAPH just for that exact purpose. You'll be seeing definitely more of that stuff coming. I've got scheduled in my own plan for the next month or two to be going out and shooting some videos with a few different customers that are doing some very high-end and gorgeous work. So it is coming.
That's not by accident. So if you'll go up to the digital magazine up on the area, you're seeing us celebrate the works of a game development. To your point, talking to people that are making films in a very public way. The elements that we have planned at the Cave event and AU, to be able to again celebrate customers and have them talk about how they use this thing. It's not a secret anymore. Mm-hmm. So again, a great point.
Yeah, we are very much, and I totally understand where you're coming from, Arthur, who, when you ask this, because absolutely in the previous years it seemed to kind of fall to the wayside a little bit, but we are aware of these stories, and we are certainly bringing them to the forefront. But that doesn't mean we're going to ignore a game story or a design viz story or anything else at the same time. We are looking to, it is a massive user base that we are trying to keep everyone recognizing that they are loved.
Yes. And that's, when we talk about the great aspect of 3ds Max, it is that family, it is that community. It doesn't make our lives any easier. So if we were just making one kind of soda, it would be very simple to process one type of, marketing campaign. But we make a number of different flavors that really satisfy or needs to satisfy a number of different needs. So I want you to be proud to be a part of that family, as I am. So proud that I tattooed it on my body. But I want you to be proud of that family. I want you to recognize that we have people using Max for the very first time today, and there are people that have been using 3ds Max for 20
years.
Yeah.
Well, 3D Studio from
DOS.
Yeah.
So again, what a rich heritage, and I can't tell you how proud I am to be a part of that, and I hope you are too.
All right, so let's first off dive back into some of the questions that were submitted earlier. I'm seeing more questions around the kind of Max and industry and stuff like that, but I'd like to just jump into some more techie things first, and we can come back to other stuff if it's still there. So one of the things that was asked about here was, what are some of the more underutilized modifiers from the point of view from our technical experts? What are the things that people have forgotten are there, that no one uses, that just, it's like, oh, if you only knew, it would save your life so much time here and there. So I'm going to throw this kind of out to the group in general. I know Chris is sitting in front of a machine, so we can probably do some
Making
stuff on that.
teapots, no less.
Making teapots. That's all. I recommend the teapot.
I have a couple of modifiers that I think are generally overlooked. Or it's not so much that any one modifier is overlooked, but just the idea of using multiple modifiers together to accomplish certain things are frequently overlooked. So my short list of favoritely overlooked modifiers are the shell modifier, the sweep modifier, using them together or using volume select together. For example, if I'm going to use like slice to slice objects, people use that all the time to cut objects up. I'll go ahead and just move the slice plane up, and you can split the mesh, or you can remove the top or the bottom, and you can do this to, obviously generate interior volumes of things. But then when you actually combine it with something like this shell modifier, so I'll jump in here and say shell, you're generating more geometry as you go, so you can, do cutaways and things like that. So
Also, I find it really handy for animated appearances of objects.
Right, exactly. Animated. Yeah, that's a great one. I think Louis Marcoux at AU a couple years ago did a great reveal animation, showing that type of stuff. Other ones, if I'm doing just, some quick, I'll do like circle, and I'll do a couple of lines here, just generating some lines there. If I get a sweep modifier, sweep is a lot like extrude in some ways. I'll grab it here, sweep, and then you can, it has built-in angles or built-in sections that you can use. All of these different types of cross sections create different geometries for you. So those are some of my favorite modifiers.
And there's a few people here throwing out their own suggestions. We've got people saying, Paul saying flex and volume select are big ones for him along with X-forms. And I'll actually add to that. I did a tips and trick video, I think about a year ago, maybe even 2 now, which was all around creating animated organic shapes. And one of the things was just showing how to do like uncoiling ropes and stuff like that. And simply using the bend modifier with flex, you can get this totally believable dynamic solve of rope. And it's just modifiers, and it happens instantaneously real time in the viewport. So again, layering those two modifiers together does a huge amount.
Flex is probably for secondary animation. I mean, it's a no-brainer for so many different things. I've just using this object here, just thrown a couple of animated keys on it, moving it around like that, and then when you activate the flex modifier, you get this bendy, warpy look as it moves around. A very subtle secondary animation to it. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the most overlooked modifiers in that regard. There's more specifically, I mean, it's kind of many people might not realize this about the modifiers in general. When you have the default install of Max, you get this big long shopping list of things, and it's like, what do I use these for? And many people might not realize, and this is kind of a good little tip and trick, is if you right-click on the drop-down menu for the modifiers, you can actually see how the modifiers are grouped based on use. So, for example, right now it's set to show all sets in the list. If I just want to see the mesh editing modifiers, well, actually, let me recategorize this here. Let's do show all the sets in the list. This actually groups the drop-down in the based on use of the modifier. So this will probably, as you're learning Max, if you're new to Max, trying to figure out what modifiers to use, or if you're just unclear of what typical category or type of use that the specific modifier would have, you can turn that feature on. It's called Show All Sets in List, and it breaks down the list of all the different modifiers. You can also choose to show buttons, and this is what I had done earlier. If you choose show buttons, then you can choose the different, for example, the animation modifiers, and it tends to, it can show the buttons, show the modifiers in button form, so that you don't have to troll through the modifier drop-down list to do that.
Perfect. Eddie, any of yours in the favorites category?
I really think that the FFD modifiers are probably the least understood modifiers, and probably one of the most powerful modeling tools that are available. So one of my personal favorites is the FFD modifier, and using that to modify whatever I'm working on.
I'd actually like to talk about that for a second, because I think that that's a really good, the FFD modifier appears in a couple different places. One, as a modifier at the object level, but 2, also as a space warp, which changes.
I use it a lot, yes.
Yeah, which changes. So basically, if you have an object that has an FFD modifier on it, of course I've changed all of my things here, so now I'm completely lost. You have these as individual modifiers at the object level, but then if you go into your space warps and go into geometric deformable, you have FFDs there as well. And people may not realize that you can put an FFD in your scene and then pass things through that deformer in an animated fashion, and it'll warp as it passes through the volume of the deformer. So it's an important distinction between having it at either the object level or the scene level.
Perfect. So I have a question here, and I don't know if we have an expert that's ready to dive into this particular one, but I'll ask it on the off chance we do. This is kind of one of those Pierre Felix kind of questions, but who knows? Some content on using mental ray light or camera shaders. How high to increase quality settings for final renders? Also a comparison between IR. I'm thinking iRay, yes. So kind of the comparison between mental ray and iRay, and how high to set quality settings to get mental ray to give you something.
Well, it's always been my opinion that that is the dance we do in 3ds Max, is we find that tightrope where the quality and the level of performance are both as optimal, as they can possibly be. So as quality goes up, performance would go.
Where's the acceptable crossing
Yeah,
point?
where does it cross? And that's where every one of us as 3ds Max artists, whether we're doing films or games or design animations, we're trying to find that performance to quality element. So to ask wherever that is for you, that's the hard part. There are some amazing visual effects and design animations where it's quality is paramount, and so 24-hour renderings are not unheard of. At the same time, previews and others. So it's really,
It's one of those things. This leads to another question we actually had here, and maybe we can use this as a bit of a discussion. One of the questions we got was, which is the best renderer to use with 3ds Max, which is kind of like which baby do you love best kind of thing. It's kind of one of those weird.
It's like asking a carpenter which is the best hammer, or somebody that works on engines, which is the best wrench, or exactly. Somebody who bakes cakes, which is the best.
Because I tend to be, I'm an old school 3ds Max guy. Like I started DOS 2 was what I started using, and it feels like I was saying I had a drug, and it's like that's when I started using DOS 2. But what I still to this day actually prefer in many cases to use scanline render. I know every little trick in the book to squeeze a little bit out of it and to do the most optimum thing with lights, that I can get a scene that, as long as you're not holding it directly next to a global illumination render, like putting the two exact scenes together, you won't know I didn't globally illuminate the scene. It's just done with the right number of lights in the right ways. But my render will take 30 seconds, and the global illumination render from V-Ray or Mental Ray will take an hour.
Right.
Whereas there are people who are newer users of Max, and it's like, no, I just want the little switches that I turn on and let the computer go and figure that's what its job is. So there's definitely a preference kind of thing. I think it's probably safe to say from the group that V-Ray is certainly one of the most popular of the choices for 3ds Max.
Yes.
I can actually answer that a little bit from an actual use case. We showed this at SIGGRAPH, and this was just doing some particle flow stuff. The question was, which is the best renderer? And I think it's the renderer that suits the job. Scanline, people go to Scanline. I like Scanline. I mean, I know, buddies of mine like Gary Davis swears by Scanline. He won't do anything else with it. But frequently you get, certain renderers sometimes give you a specific capability that you want. And so using this scene here, I actually used two different renderers to accomplish a couple of different things. One, because I wanted a specific effect, and two, it was a time issue. And so I used Mental Ray for one effect, and I used I used iRay for another one. So in this scene, this was we recreated Broadcast News Open using state sets and particles. So let me actually just kind of jump into this real quick and turn this on, and I can kind of explain what I'm doing here. So I've got a particle grid that we're using to create this effect. And let me go ahead and close this and pop into a camera here. Camera 5, there we go. There's, let's do, this one's, it doesn't really matter which camera we're in, but my point is that we have this scene. And I also have the finished scene in composite, just to kind of show you what was going on. Now you see we have this rendered effect of this randomly generated colors. We have red, green, and blue, basically this pixelated look effect. That was something that I could only achieve with Mental Ray using the MR multi-map subtype.
This was one of the mentioned ones as a cool.
Yeah, so what that allows me to do is actually randomly generate material assignments on objects, and when you use it with particles, it randomly generates particles on there and kind of gives you this pixelated effect. Right. That's something that's only available in Mental Ray. So I wanted that effect. I chose to use Mental Ray for that. The other thing that I used iRay for, though, was the reflection passes. And this is the reflection pass of that. And iRay has really fantastic looking reflections because it's using the Arch design materials, and I like the fact that I can dial in the amount of render time that I want to use for each pass. So Mental Ray, using the Mental Ray pass, that I needed to render based on whatever it was that I wanted to show. With the reflection pass, I'm able to essentially dial in a specific render time using iRay. So if I go into the render, I can say, I only want to spend 2 minutes a frame doing these reflection passes, and if I need more, I can add more. If I need less, I can back off. So it's which render up to you based on the task. This is a good example of how I use two different ones because I, one, wanted a specific effect, and two, I didn't have a lot of time to do reflections.
And for me, like one of the reasons I like Scanline, even if I'm using V-Ray, Mental Ray, whatever, as my primary beauty pass renderer, the nice thing that I've always loved with Scanline is it didn't need to calculate anything else but the thing you asked for from it. So whereas with most illumination renderers, if I say I just want a matte pass, it's still calculating all this other stuff in the process. With 3ds Max, I say, just give me a matte for that object. It's like a fraction of a second. Bloop, that's what you wanted? Yeah, that's all. That's the only bit of data I wanted. Mm-hmm. So I would often use the Scanline render as a way to yank out all these extra passes very quickly.
And actually, that's we've hit basically all the big ones on that, and I think we'd be a little bit remiss by not saying that that you can use state sets in a very interactive way if you do nothing else with state sets to do that.
Right.
Is just switch back and forth between either your renderers or your mats or whatever, in conjunction with choosing your rendering engine. That's really is a good thing to do.
Perfect. So we have a question here, which looks like it's a Michael question to me. Will you consider Python a high priority for the next 3ds Max release? I think we can consider this a major feature that would allow 3ds Max to be embedded in big companies' workflows.
Yeah, so I think when you look at the history of Max from day one, extensibility from an SDK and a scripting point of view has been, along the way. We get two things out of that. We do get a rich plugin community out of that, and also allows for integration into pipelines. And we've heard loud and clear the top SDK request in the user voice was Python support. So that came out with the 2014 extension. That was publicly available about a month and a half ago, 2 months available. So if you are a subscription customer, you will be able to give that a try. If you do have feedback on that, certainly use the mechanisms we have in place right in 3ds Max to send us some feedback on user voice. We're always looking to improve that integration with the pipeline, making our plugin community have all the tools they need to succeed and extend 3ds Max.
Perfect. Now here's the common question I think we get every single time we ever hold a get-together around 3ds Max, which is, when is 3ds Max coming out for the Mac? Eddie, your turn to answer the question.
Well, the truthful answer is that is the most asked question in our offices as well. And the truth of the matter is that what if it didn't matter where we actually had Macs? What if we stopped worrying about Macs on Windows or Macs on a Mac? I mean, the truth is that our world is expanding far beyond Windows and Macs, and it's now starting to become Android based and iOS 7 based. So what we're really looking to at this point is leapfrogging that so that it didn't matter to you at all, and you'd be able to enjoy 3ds Max on a number of different devices. So you've already maybe have had a chance to see Autodesk's remote. And Autodesk's remote, if you go up to the, I think it's still on Labs, isn't it? Where you can actually drive your 3ds Max from your desktop on your mobile device. So that would be kind of an indication of where we're going. And then just announce this week, if you guys would, you want to Google or search for Autodesk and Otoy, O-T-O-Y. You start to see how we can start to run our applications. One of the first ones that was included in this little experiment was 3ds Max, how it can run that in a browser from a desktop. So suddenly, you're no longer tied to even a hardware device. You can start to take your Macs with you everywhere. So I think that there's going to be quite a bit of movement beyond worrying about one operating system or the other.
Perfect. Let's see what else we got here. Well, one of the questions that I do get a fair bit is what happens to crash reports? Is anybody home? Because I mean, when you crash and you're like mashing that button to send it in. Go ahead, Michael.
They are looked at religiously. So yeah, maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll explain a little bit about the process, and I'll talk a little bit about what we've done with them, what we do with them on an ongoing basis, and something we've done very specifically recently. So customer error reports. So I might use the term CER. So just so you know what I'm talking about. We use it and look at it so frequently we need to have a little acronym for it. So CRs are the package that is sent to Autodesk when there is a crash. And that gives us a certain information about the state of the program and a little bit of information about the product version, the operating system, the service packs installed, things like that. So what happens is it comes to a central place and it kind of buckets them by feature area, even down to the line of code. So we can start to see trends of problem areas, things we didn't catch before the software went into the field. And what we can do with that is we can start seeing user counts, unique user counts. And what we do each release is we certainly set a pretty high goal for tackling the ones we see bubbling to the top. Those are the things that you see coming out in service packs more often than not. There is a round trip mechanism in the sense that if you do send in a report for something we feel is fixed already in a service pack, you will be notified by email. So I think the message there, and I'll tell you what we did with a lot of them and what we do with them, is please send them in. I think one way to look at it, you kind of are voting to have that fix in some regards. And as much information you can provide in the report, email address, repro steps, we love repro steps. Please put those in there, because lots of times some of the reports, to be quite honest, are not actionable with just the information coming from the program, and we really need your help there. So I highly encourage that. So as I said, like every release, we do tackle a fair number of those, but I think it's fair to say that we've heard that we need to do a better job at that. And one of the things that we've done is a deeper analysis of those reports and look for common themes across things. So things that we've specifically done in 2014 is we have a mesh validator feature. So we realized that malformed meshes don't really crash the mesh code, it's everything else around it, the plugins and other things. So we do a good job of cleaning up bad meshes coming in before they're saved out. And we feel that solves a lot of problems. We have a more transaction-based file save system. We will not overwrite your file if there's any errors going down through the save process. We've also made a rendering system a bit more resilient. We've seen a lot of instabilities in the rendering system, and now we're a little bit more, we can handle instabilities in the rendering system a bit better and recover from that and let you continue working. So those are kind of the three major areas that we've hit in the 2014 release. And I can say that we've been hearing people have actually feeling that difference in the day-to-day usage of Macs. So we're pretty proud of that.
So I know to follow along to that side, one of the other questions we got was asking, and I'm sorry for people online, but because we keep hitting ones that seem to tie into what we're talking about from earlier submitted things, I'm hitting a few of those first. One of the questions that came in was, what are we doing to make Macs easier to use? And obviously, fixing bugs and improving things is one of those things. But if I can toss this over to Kelsey, who's working on more of the product design side of things, can you talk a little bit about what we've been doing to make it easier to use 3ds Max?
Certainly. So the easier to use is an interesting phrase, because there's a lot of things that make a product easier to use. One of them is making it simpler. Another thing is making it more efficient. And sometimes those are not exactly the same things, because we want to still have the power within the tools, but be able to understand what we're doing better, be able to find what we're looking for easier. So that's the kind of things that we've been looking at in 3ds Max in recent releases. One of the new things that you see in one of the latest releases is the opt-in menu system, and that system actually has tooltips that kind of explain the processes for. And we have an example being shown. The process that each of these actions will take. So it'll explain what it'll do, and sometimes you'll get to see it used in context in a video or a screenshot. And a lot of times at a glance, just looking at an image and saying, oh, okay, I get it, I get what that is. And being able to have a link directly to the help so that you can get more information about that particular thing. And we find that makes those are the launch points for all of the main actions in Max, and those are also action items that are not in the menus. Include some of this information. So when you add things to the menu, you will see tooltips being available for those things as well. Other things, we have presets and things like that throughout Max that sort of get you a little bit farther. You hit the ground running. You don't have to start from scratch. We have presets throughout Max and in the particles and rendering and all throughout. There's a lot of presets for hair and cloth and stuff like that, so that you can get a little farther, a little faster. Some of the other things about ease of use are about efficiency, being able to like for instance, being able to group your modifiers and being able to customize your UI. And we've added some things for workspaces and stuff that'll allow you to save the configurations of your toolbars and things like that, so that you can flip between those pretty easily. So there's things about sort of understanding the product as well as improving the efficiency, and we are continuing to work on those things as we move forward.
So just so you know, for everyone, I'm coming back to you people that are in the live chat at right now, but all the people that are asking questions about where can I get tutorials and everything, I'm just assuming the people on the chat are going to keep answering those questions for us, because they seem to be doing a fantastic job so far.
Well, to that point, one of the great things about having 22 years of great history and a great community is that I don't think that there's any software that has more resources available to it. Imagine any other software where you can go into a local bookstore and find 3 or 4 different titles regarding how to use the software. That's almost unprecedented. That's to this specific or this specialty of a case.
Consider the actual size of the market. It's
Yeah,
not
it may match like the number of books on Word. You know what I mean? And so it's really exciting, actually.
So one of the things I've not been ignoring everyone online. A lot of people are asking about the animation tools inside of 3ds Max. They're asking, are there plans, thoughts? What are we looking into around revamping controllers or adding new? I think a lot of people aren't even necessarily asking for anything new, just so much revamping.
Yes. So when we take a look at the needs of the Max user and the Max family, there are obviously categories that fit a number of different use cases. So for rendering example. I think what you're going to see is some game-changing kinds of movements in the rendering world. The same thing is true with animation, and there's no doubt that everybody that's using 3ds Max, whether you're using it for, a very high-level film, like when you go to see Thor this week, be proud of the fact that there's a number of shots created in Max. If you're using it for a visualization asset where you're explaining the animation processes, again, should be equally easy and robust. So there's no doubt about the fact that animation is a part of the attention sphere that is being looked at. I caution you, though, because I said that, and now I'm waiting for the questions to start going, well, what about my thing? And what about my thing? And what about my thing? And I want you to know that nothing is being ignored. From this day forward, as Mia as PM, Michael as development, and Kelsey as the lead designer, nothing is being ignored. So I think we got some comments about refusing to do this, or obviously not interested in that. And I can assure you that that is not the case. It's just that, everything in life has priorities, and everything in life has a certain process, and sometimes we can't do one over the other. And I think we accept that about going off on wild vacations, and it's part of the development process for software as well. So those are the ways that it's kind of done. So.
One of the questions that just came in online, can we expect subscription customers to get access to cloud rendering services in 360 the way that AutoCAD, Revit, and others have? Or is there just a fear of 3ds Max users crushing the system? I wouldn't be wrong.
I'm envisioning Martin Scorsese doing Hugo 2 and waiting for my rendering to come down after that. Like I said, there are some really game-changing kinds of workflows, and that is definitely one of the top aspects of topics that we're working on. So, did I answer without answering?
Yes, I think you did.
Oh, sorry. It's the law.
So everyone, still a number of questions coming in asking about the animation stuff, just as you were talking about. Yes, we hear you. Let me look to some of the other questions that we might have here.
While Sean's doing that, I encourage you right now to go up to user voice and tell us what those are. Don't be afraid to. I heard someone say, "Well, my thing doesn't get many votes." It doesn't mean it gets ignored. My thing, what I posted up there, it is very specific. You don't know that. One of the things that I was really caught up with at the Gunslinger event is we all came in with our specific industries, and very quickly it was recognized how much we have in common, not that more than the specific elements. So.
To talk a little bit about the animation side of things, one of the questions that we had submitted was asking about, is there a way to do animatable pivot points inside of 3ds Max? So to take us back to a bit of a techie side of thing for those who are more new to the software, I thought we would toss that over to Chris.
Okay, so animatable pivot points. I know. First of all, I've been having this character rig on screen. I just want to give thanks to Sergio Edma, who provided this for us. It's always nice to recognize artists who do great work, so I want to thank him for that. So animatable pivot points, probably a couple different ways to do that. My first reaction is to go into, actually I'm going to move out here a little bit to get a little bit of space going on, and I'm just going to throw a couple of keys on this object right out of the gate. Oops, let's back up. Let me move my time slider first. Get my little character out of the way. All right, so our teapot here is moving. If I just go into I can assign a controller, and now some of the cat controllers now can be put on any object. So, for example, I'm at the transform level here, and you can see there's pivot transform, transform offset, those sorts of things. You could choose that and apply it there, and that will add a series of tracks to your to the object itself, and then you can generate keys in here and offset it that way. That's probably the my initial way to do that. So if I just move this up here, you can see I now have curves on the pivot. So the teapot will be moving around. Oh, here's the offset. Sorry, there we go. There's the offset on that. Generate some keys in there. You could do it that way. Whoops, I've clicked off what I want to do. Let's try. There you go. Clicking some keys in there. And then just showing you that since this is over time, it's a little tough to see because it's not in there. Not in there. Let me see which way am I moving it here. There, it's if I do a much more exaggerated movement, it'll probably be a little bit more obvious. There we go. So in that case, I'm just very quickly moving the offset of the pivot point separate from the object transform itself. So, do you have anything to add on that, Kelsey?
No, probably easier to see if you rotated it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know, right? Well, that's what you get for doing live. At the 10:30 p.m. session, I'll make sure that I do that a little differently.
One of the other questions that's come in is asking if we are still using the agile methodology in development.
That's
Yes.
Wow. You guys are in tune.
So yes, we are. So we are using Scrum, and we have for a little while now, and we do plan to continue. If that was the question, it's been pretty successful for us. There's a lot of number of reasons to do that. I'll be brief. The two things that I like to see our team get out of it is incorporating feedback a bit more. We do get a lot of regular builds going up to our beta board more frequently than we had been able to in the past. So we're able to get feedback a bit more and incorporate that through the teams and back into the products. That's just another great feedback loop. And the other thing, Eddie said everything is changing, the world is changing and all that good stuff. And, for me, that process helps us better react when we need to react and make those changes and make the right decisions for the product throughout the whole year. So, yeah, I'm a big fan.
And another question that's come out, and this I think falls into we can't really tell you about future stuff, but I'll throw it out there anyway, just in case, which is, what about open subdiv?
As you can imagine, as you take a look at the user voice top requests, that is definitely an area of focus and success. And so I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised as we look at those elements, how they get incorporated and how quickly. So
Take that for what you will.
the keywords there were success.
Success.
Quickly.
And someone immediately paused on any words on open subdiv, please. That was a very desired feature for the user voice. So there, he's said what he can say.
It's the law.
It's the law. Let's see what else we got going on here. Let me jump back to some of the earlier sent ones just to give ourselves a balance. And we have, is it possible to loop a cloth simulation, such as use, for example, flag flapping in the wind? I guess this would go back to Chris as a starting point.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. There's any number of ways to do this. That's one of the strengths about 3ds Max is it does it. You can do things more than one way. This also is one of those questions that could take us down a rabbit hole a little bit if we try to recreate it. So I just want to maybe discuss it a little bit and give some context to it. There's several different options that you could use. There's the wave space warp, and using it since it's a very predictable methodology with, getting your amplitude and things like that, finding your loop point and doing that. We also discussed using the morpher modifier, getting, your in and out points on that. It's not as simple an answer as it's a very simple question, but the answer is potentially complicated because depending on the size of the loop, which is what we talked about with Eddie earlier, is where are your in and out points for that loop, and is that going to change? Another thing that Kelsey was talking about was using the blending point caches to do that.
Simulating lots of point cache and then blending those two with a handful of point cache modifiers and adjusting the strength and looping them essentially the same way that you would blend create almost any animation and making it loop back around to the place that it came. So
this is a good question since this one kind of came in a little bit late, right before we started. I'm going to try and address this one for our 10:30 p.m. session and actually have a scene file that we can show tonight for that. But
that could be something we could put on the area too. If you tune in for 10:30.
It's a good question. So
The reality is, then we considered your question for a flag. It would be one set of tools. If it was something that you wanted to loop for a curtain, would it be a different set of tools? So the answer is yes. It's just that.
It's situation based.
Yes. So
we'll try to have an actual example of that in the next session, 10:30 p.m.
So now another question that I've seen a few different people bouncing around talking about is around performance inside of 3ds Max and kind of what we've been doing around performance. Obviously, for the last few years, there's been a number of things we've been doing to try and improve performance.
I have just one comment, and then I'm going to pass this over to Mike and Kelsey. Is that with the agile process, one of the things that is paramount to the development of the software from now on is that nothing we do in any way deteriorates the performance of the software. And so and that's kind of one of the benefits of this agile process. But I'm gonna pass the mic over to Mike so that he can explain that more.
So I mean, good point. So I mean, as far as things deteriorating is what maybe Eddie was getting at. Everything that we've been doing to improve, we always make sure that we have a means of making sure it stays at that level as well. That's incorporated into everything we do. As far as things that we specifically done in 2014, the one that maybe people don't know about as much is track view. That's one example where track view performance for a lot of tracks dramatically improved. I've heard beta users say, night and day, as far as the difference there. Other things, more traditional viewport performance is typically what we think about when we think about performance. The app is the window to your scene. So deforming meshes have been improved, quite a bit. That's been accomplished by improved viewport stuff. But we've also multi-threaded some of our more common modifiers, the actual algorithms within the modifiers. So we got a pretty good boost there. Texture management has been improved, so large scenes with lots of textures. Memory management is much, much better there. Node selections have been improved. There's a whole bunch. And it's one of those things that, it's not statistical. It's people are feeling that in 2014, and we get that feedback, which is fantastic.
Well, to follow along that thing, someone actually saying your nitrous is definitely faster.
Great.
One of the questions was, what can you say about improvement in performance when it applies to animation / rigs, solving, that kind of stuff? Obviously, the track view stuff will have an impact there, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, track view. So track view, if it's skin, the deforming meshing stuff would definitely help there. The mesh, the skin modifier, the skin warp has also been
Skin
improved.
wrap,
Skin wrap. Thank you.
wrap.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm like,
I was looking
warp.
to
What
Eddie
was
for that.
skin warp?
We used to call skin warp.
That's why you saw that
Yeah. So
When did we have that modified?
I'm not the expert user, so
Skin wrap, yep.
skin wrap. So yeah, a lot of those had been improved as well. So playback has been improved there. Also, we made some improvements to the drawing of helpers and dummy objects and things like that. They moved closer to the nitrous system that somebody responded to. That's the name of our viewport system. So that has been improved as well in 2014.
Actually, Sean, we had a user that sent us a video of him singing and dancing. I think there was alcohol involved.
imagine.
Regarding the speed of nitrous, and now it's too fast, and how much he loves the whole overall performance. When I can get you guys to sing and dance and have you send me video clips of that, I think we're we're doing what you need.
So
us
all
to
you
do.
people that got the Python support you wanted were expecting dancing videos at this point. Okay, well, we talked a few times about the Gunslinger. I think it'd be kind of cool to get a little more detail, kind of what you felt came out of the Gunslinger. Was it a worthwhile experience? Are you going to do it again? What's the thought?
I can take no credit for the Gunslinger. Its success and the way it was driven is completely the success of this young lady over here. So swing over. Kelsey, why don't you tell us more about how that was all done?
Gunslinger, we had it's not just me, we had a big team involved in getting the Gunslinger together. The Gunslinger was essentially an event in which we invited customers to participate in a design charrette. And a design charrette is really where we collectively, in a participatory way, a group of people come together to solve problems. So we identified problems that the users had, and we selected a small group of users. We kept the group small, and there was usually somebody present that would represent almost all the other users that were like them. So each person that was invited was very different from each other, and they did different kinds of tasks in our products, and we wanted to find out more about what they needed. And so we initially identified all the problems that they were having. We even invited them to discuss their bugs and things with us, but also the needs that they had. And then collectively we tried to solve these problems and discussed goals for what would come up. So, an example of things that came up would be more customization in the UI to promote efficiency. What would be the goals of that? What would be ways that we could potentially address those kinds of things? What kinds of problems does it need to solve? Not everybody uses the UI in the same way. And we had discussions about animation and interop and modeling and performance and all. It wasn't just UI, but we had these conversations and we got a lot of information, and we got a lot of good ideas, and we developed some relationships with people that we can continually go back and validate some of the things that we do moving forward and get more information. So this is a collective group that maybe you've heard. We've had in the past meetings, trade shows, or customer visits in which we validate the things that we're planning and ask users to get more feedback. But that's really the best way that we can develop something that we know is going to solve the problems, is to be in direct communication with people at all times. And it's difficult to communicate with everyone and have discussions with everyone, so this is the way that we've tried to pose it so that we can have a group that's representative of everyone that can give us that kind of feedback that we want to hear.
Apparently Paul Neal is being voted up for the next Gunslinger.
Yes. I second the vote.
There you go, Paul. Kelsey wants you to come too. All right, so let's see what else we've got here now. I'm getting still a lot of people asking about very specific future details of features, and I know you all want to know about those things, but again, same thing. As an example, we're now getting asked if there are going to be improvements for skin wrap, more for skin morpher, all of those kind of things on the horizon.
I guess I'm challenged as how I can assure you in another way to make sure that this is getting through. From the top down at Autodesk, there is a new excitement about 3ds Max. There is a new passion about 3ds Max from Chris Bradshaw, who is the vice president in charge of media and entertainment, who told me that as long as he sits in that chair, there will be a 3ds Max. To the team that you see before you, to me, there is no element of your use of this product that will be ignored from this day forward. So the only thing that I challenge to you at this point is to make sure to let us know what that is. and from there on, nothing will be ignored.
There we go. Now, one of the questions that we had sent to us earlier on was asking about the new point cloud tools inside of 3ds Max and kind of how they're being used, how people should be using them.
Okay. Yeah, so let me go ahead and reset the scene here. Our screen is black behind us. Are we still broadcasting Max out? Okay,
Yep.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, you can, we're over here.
All right.
This is the line.
All right, no problem, no problem. So, obviously in Max we have under your object crate you can wrong one, point cloud objects, and you can load in point cloud data. So let me just kind of navigate out to my demo scenes here and actually get some. This is really kind of the first implementation of point clouds in Max. So let me go ahead and bring in, let me just double check my file size here. I'm going to bring in this one and generate the object. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to maximize my viewport. So we can see it here. We get a lot of good visual feedback from it, and then really that's the kind of the initial purpose of the tool, at least in this stage, is to give you good in-scene reference and positional object placement. Currently, there's not a whole lot of default modeling tools, of course. That was one of the first things that I wanted to do as a longtime Max modeler, is get in and figure out how I could actually use it as a modeling tool to do that. So I just actually, on my blog on the area, I just posted a big time-lapse video of how I determined what I could actually use for modeling with these point clouds. I ended up using the spline modeling method, and you can see the whole time-lapse video of that up there. So we, obviously we're able to have point clouds in here. We have a new snap category here called point cloud vertex snap, so you can actually snap and position objects to those point cloud objects. And in terms of modeling, I use the spline method and generated mesh topology using the surface modifier with that, and then retopologized it in Mudbox. Again, you can see that entire lengthy process up on the area, but that's kind of where we are right now with point clouds. Obviously we have things like recap and the whole mobile reality capture initiative going on within Autodesk. So I think it makes sense, and I'm not speaking for product management here, but as an artist perspective, it makes sense to leverage the strengths of where those tools are being developed and see how we can bring them in here. Obviously, I hope that we can see some of those in Max.
Well, it definitely goes beyond even that, Chris. We have exciting opportunities with recap. We have I have experience in a number of different products that span a number of different opportunities as part of the Autodesk portfolio to make interoperability between a number of different strengths at Autodesk is some of the things that we're looking at. So recap and its potential is just one of the many that we're going to try to get more access to you as Max user to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. I've put on, while we're still on the subject, I don't know if it'll show on the screen or not, but I've loaded, the actual time-lapse footage that you can see up on there, and going through and doing some of the spline modeling and editing directly within Max, directly on the point cloud using the new vertex point cloud vertex snap. So again, you can check that. If you're looking for a technique specific to point clouds, you can check that out and at least experiment with it a little bit. So just thought I'd bring that to your attention.
So one of the questions that came in just a little earlier, which we've been kind of chuckling at the answers that have been going in here, is Jeff Patton asked, why was the excitement, passion for the 3ds Max lost to begin with, since that's what everyone was worried is going on now?
And Jeff, while I can't speak to the past, and maybe you and I have even had a chance to talk about this, I know that I've had this discussion with a number of users in a number of different areas. I can assure you that the passion never left from the development aspect, from the PMs before me, and those areas. Gosh, the truth is, we can't change the past. So it's only the future and the present that we can cherish and look forward to. So let's really focus in on that. It doesn't help to know what or why, but the fact is that we learned from and won't repeat. So hopefully that's we could spend. I tell you what, you and I, we can sit down and talk about this at any times. But and I have my theories, but the reality is we've learned, and now the future is bright again.
We've got quite the little set of conversations going on at the moment here. I'm just trying to parse through them to find the actual questions inside.
While you're doing that, Sean, a couple of things to let you know about is there are a number of you that maybe followed my blogs up on the area with specific design visualization and design animation subject matters. From the cave floor, we're going to launch a new vehicle, a new blog for the development team. So giving everybody an opportunity to kind of talk to you about how 3ds Max is being developed and marketed and positioned so that you'll have a constant connection that way. So we're going to kind of launch that from the cave. Those kinds of pieces are coming together. Again, more views or different success stories celebrating all of your work. So if you want to get involved with that, again, if you're excited to have your work shown to the world, one of the things we have to recognize is that 3ds Max, it does represent a competitive advantage. So there are firms out there that are creating amazing elements that really want to keep the fact that they're doing it in 3ds Max in a package that helps them do that efficiently, and that might not be something a number of teams want to share, but if you are in fact one that does, we're always looking for more success stories too. So,
and here's one. I knew this would come up eventually on here, and this is the talking about the Max Underground thread that we all remember from the summer around SIGGRAPH. I'd like to take this one as a start because I'm going to call myself slightly to blame for what happened at that user group. And I don't think there's any. I know a number of the names here on the thing, and I think you all know that I am definitely not against Max in any way, shape, or form. The reality of that particular event, and then we can talk about kind of the flow off of this. The reality of that typical event is we spent months prepping an event that, as always, we try and have the most balance we possibly can in all of our events whenever we can. And we actually had very good balance. And then 2 weeks before the event, I went on vacation. And I came back, and literally the day I came back, which was, I think, 2 days before the event, 2 of our Max clients had to cancel. So we're talking 2 days before an event that had been planned for 3 months. 2 of our Max customers had to cancel. One of those being Pixamondo, just because
they're busy.
They're busy, and I forget which one. The movie company that Star Trek was distributed through had not yet given them the rights to display any of the footage. And you'll see that we were able to at least quickly pick up the next day because, of course, they come through the day of and say, "Oh, here's the rights," and it was too late to get them on stage. But I was able to get Adam Watkins to come out and hang out in the cafeteria at SIGGRAPH to at least capture him on film doing it. But really, there was no deep-seated anger, killing a product kind of motive. It was purely the fact that cancellations happened at the last minute, and it basically made it impossible to have a nice balance during the event. We had to scramble and call whoever could show up within the next 8 hours to an event to fill those slots. And that happened to be, because we were in LA, it happened to be a couple of Maya shops, which were obviously more prevalent in the LA region. So wish I could say there was that we could have fixed that in time, but we didn't. And that basically me interviewing Adam Watkins was my mea culpa. I am sorry. I managed to at least get him in the next day or two.
I thank you for your honesty, and there are often times that we read too much into some things. There are often times that it's nobody's fault, but the situation. Again, it sounds like if we might need some therapy, you and I, regarding the future of Macs and how this will develop. I can assure you that nobody appreciates better the hundreds of thousands of you out there that are making your lives, your livelihood. I used to be one with this software. The amount of time, effort, and learning, the passion that you have for this software. I caution us to all from now on, laugh more and cry less about some of these things that happen, because, like Morpheus said in one of the Matrix movies, we're still here. And so, and more so than ever, Autodesk appreciates that as well. So,
and FY, looking forward, AU is on the horizon with Cave. Any of you that aren't going to be there, we are holding a 3 December event at AU, and I am working on that layout right now. It'll be 90 minutes of just rapid fire cool stuff that's done with Autodesk products. And knowing that I am at AU and that we will have a preponderance of 3ds Max people there, I will be going out of my way to actually overweight the 3ds Max side. Just for you guys, so expect there'll be a lot of cool stuff you can see during that.
I hope that you guys all appreciate that we love Maya too, and soft, and I'm nervous now because if I don't mention something, you guys are going to think that I'm being exactly. So Motion Builder, Mudbox, Smoke and Flame, and who am I missing? And then and Revit and AutoCAD and Inventor, and I think we have 146 products in the Autodesk family now, and like I said, this is an exciting new time. So. Again, let's laugh instead of cry. Let's be proud instead of being a victim, because we're still here. And I think you'll start to see the effects of that, release after release after release.
So Paul's making himself available for the 3 December event for me.
Paul, where are you right now? Get in your car. We're.
All right. So, good. I'm glad a lot of people saw the Pixelmondo interview and we're appreciative of that. So that's good. I'm glad you seeing it. Please pass it around to your friends. I'd like to get that one out there.
I still get the chills when I see what you guys do. It's just amazing. I can't be, of all the products in the Autodesk portfolio, no, in all the products that are out there for these industries, I can't imagine one that I would be more excited to be a part of than this. Because yes, other products in the portfolio get to show some pretty amazing things, but like I said, the fact that somebody is starting today and is going to do exceptional work in a very short amount of time, while others of you who have been doing this for a long time are just pushing the envelope further and further, I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to be associated with each and every one of you. So,
what more can we say, really?
So stop asking those questions.
All right, so I haven't seen a lot of particular questions in the last little bit here. Lots of chatting, though, so we're happy to see everyone getting along. We'll all take flack in the Maya session next. That's where it's like, you love them more.
Did you hear what the Max guys were saying?
When do the depth of field come to the Max real-time viewport?
Wow,
that's
a history question.
Well, and ironically, that's a file I've been actually showing. We're in 2014. Thank you, Mike Russo, reining me in. I think it was 2012. That's when it came in. This is actually the file. This is again from another customer. We got this from Mixamo, and they provided us with this content. So if I scrub through this here, you can actually, we let Nitro's viewports refine. And so just give this a minute to go through, and you'll start to see the depth of field begin to occur directly within the viewport. So I think this came in version 2012. We had a lot of nitrous enhancements that year, and so there you go. So there you can actually see it pretty well there.
Depth of field was one of those hidden benefits that you had to hack into to get to display, but
Yep.
then became
And
a little bit more accessible.
If you do a viewport, this is kind of a interesting little. It's not quite a hack, but it's something that will work. Is if you do a viewport preview with this on, that'll become part of the viewport preview. So I have seen some people do some machinima type, videos and animations and shorts and things like that are strictly viewport rendered with this in there. So it's in there. It's part of the camera. You just turn it on. And just for the record, this laptop is a Dell with a K5000M NVIDIA Quadro card. So it's a good piece of hardware, and it's really showing off the depth of field in there very nicely.
So a question that I've seen come up a couple times now, and we'll take a shot at it here, is why, again, are there two 3ds Max flavors? I think I can pass this to Eddie with the... Remind him to pick up his microphone.
Sorry, I was buffering there. The original concept of 3ds Max and 3ds Max design really was, again, something that you guys recommended, in that recognizing that there's a large family of people using the software in a number of different ways. How can we get somebody who is doing architectural or product visualization the tools, the help files, the tutorials that they need, and at the same time give me the tools and help files and experience I need, but still kind of keep us all in the same family. And that's really where this kind of separation, or this unique element, or look at the unique uses of 3ds Max really kind of came from, and gave us an opportunity to be I think we are the most included software in all of the Autodesk suites. That kind of opportunity arose. But then we're seeing data that's maybe making us to take another look at that. So moving forward, will there be a bigger separation or a bringing together? I guess it's kind of, I'm interested to see what you guys kind of think. At the Gunslinger, there was a certain perspective that I won't taint your opinion with, but there was a certain perspective at the Gunslinger. I'm excited to hear what new users and experienced users at AU are going to tell us about that. But that's kind of like one of the first things that I wanted to really make a determination about going forward as far as being the new product manager. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of the history. But it's certainly, again, something we can talk more about.
So now a couple other questions here. Of course, the challenge has been taken up on, okay, depth of field works for some time now. What about motion blur in the viewport?
But yeah. You want to comment on that?
When was it introduced, or does it work?
Does it work?
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
It's on the camera.
It's
Chris is now digging because he hasn't used that feature.
I don't use motion blur in the viewport, so I'm gonna have that answer at the 10:30 session for sure. Yeah. Let's see.
Another question here is anything being done on the material editor / slate editor side to improve the relationship between the two interfaces? They do different things, and I understand that, but since the separation, then it cuts off because I think he hit the character limit of his question.
And because of that, I'm excited. Is that where you were going to go with that? Actually, because it's the law, I'm trying to frame the response so that I can give you some insights as to some of the things that are being developed and designed. It is definitely the relationship of the compact material editor and the slate material editor, how those interface going forward is a part of a bigger discussion. and I'm excited about the performance increases that I've seen our development team get for both of those. I'm excited about some of the things that you are going to see in the very near future regarding that. I'm a little fuzzy as far as the relationship is concerned. Sean was reminding me very quickly as I took this position that he's a big fan of the compact material editor. Don't touchy, don't touchy. So, so there's certainly a number of different theories about that.
I mean, obviously, again, as an old school user, I remember how hard it was, because there was this while where I taught, and I remember how hard it was for people to learn how to use the compact material editor, because you had to kind of make certain leaps of faith in your mindset for how it went together. And I think the Slate makes a lot more sense for people, but for me, it's always they have to both exist, because the compact editor can make simple to moderately complex materials so quickly, where you'd be connecting all these little lines inside a Slate, and then Slate, on the other hand, when you have to deal with a really complex material, you can really look over the entire thing and plot and redirect and do all this other stuff with it. So they're definitely they have to kind of continue to coexist. Whether the way that coexistence happens in the future changes, you'll have to see.
There's opportunity there.
Yeah. All right. Is Autodesk still developing or supporting composite, or are we just moving to smoke?
Well, I showed composite earlier.
Yes. Chris was actually demoing on composite.
I'm actually in composite right now. I mean, that's a product question, obviously. I use it.
Well, again, that goes back to the whole conversation we had about industry directives and where does the industry go from there? How does composite fit for the film industry, for the game industry, for the design animation industry, and how will that be developed? So the Maya team relies on composite as a part of their offering. The Max team relies on composite as part of its offering. We understand that there are a number of people that are new to composite, and there are a number of people that aren't really that excited about it. So how do we, so going forward, when we get the data on how it's being used, and when you tell us what to do with that, it will impact how that goes forward.
And then we have a question here about Quicksilver. Will Quicksilver see any love at any point?
Should I blow their minds and say no at some point? because again, I'm nothing is off the table. Right. So there's the whole relationship of Quicksilver and the industries that it fits in is really compelling, and I tend to agree that it's a great idea that hasn't seen its fullest potential yet. But again, I'm going to challenge you. What if we could leapfrog that a couple of spaces further to really be able to take non-photorealistic types of workflows and advance those. Again, because we have this new energy for all of the members of the family. Again, if I can build a tool for you that transcends a number of your needs, is it Quicksilver? Maybe we shouldn't focus in on a certain name or type, but that's definitely something that is talked about a lot.
Perfect. People, apparently there's some love for smoke out there, the smoke for Mac. And then other people saying, but I can't run it because I don't have a Mac.
So when is smoke coming out on Windows? Yeah, you'll have to talk to the smoke guys about that one.
And there's also asking about UVs and UV editor love, particularly it sounds like around speed when dealing with really large UV sets and things.
So one of the things that we learned at the Gunslinger is there's a lot of need in that regard. So need equals attention, attention equals development.
All right, we're on the last few minutes. Anyone have any last questions
Already?
they want to slip in there? I know, it just flew by. So Archer says, make smoke for PC, but ditch composite. That's his plan. Someone asking about hardware rendering on ATI cards. Well, that would be AMD cards these days, but
Our relationship with AMD, I think, as you can see, they are excited about the future of 3ds Max. The fact that we had a great opportunity to develop further the stereo camera rig together. I think that's just a relationship that's going to grow and improve throughout the course of the future. So I think there's a lot of, again, I feel like a broken record.
In case they don't know about the stereo camera rig as part of the Exchange, it
Well,
might be
why don't we actually
worthy
talk
to
about that?
might be worthy to mention.
can we actually talk about Exchange a little bit? Because I know
Yeah.
a huge number of the users out there don't seem to even realize Exchange is there. At this
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was introduced to it through the stereo camera rig as well. So even as an Autodesk employee,
While
I
you're
didn't.
talking about it, I have the stereo camera
pull
feature
it
going in.
All right,
Max if
why
you
don't we
wanna
show
see it.
that up on the screen? And
You can talk about Exchange.
oh, well, actually, my point will be very short. So we talked a little bit, or introduced you to this agile form of software development. One of the things that is going to be exciting about that is we don't have to wait, as we did in the DOS days, for a box to show up with 15 disks in order to install our software. We don't even consider anymore the DVD as the primary source of software installation. And going forward, what if I could actually get you new tools as they were verified and as they were tested, so that you don't even have to wait for a certain date to come along in order for your 3ds Max environment to improve. And one of the ways that we're going to get the vehicle to getting that to you in many ways will be what's called Autodesk Exchange. And if you go up on there are a number of executables or plug-in type of elements that will enhance your software. They're posted by us and by others, so that it'll kind of be a one-stop shop for a number of these different elements. So why don't we go ahead, Chris? Are you ready to show some cool?
Well, I was just saying that on the off of Exchange with this stereo camera. So here's a good example of the stereo camera being put to use. Which, by the way, they were asking about hardware rendering with AMD. I believe the stereo
this does.
camera. This came from a partnership with AMD on that. So a good example of that
AMD
partnership.
will actually use this. If you've got an
Right.
AMD card, they have their own stereo
Yeah.
display modes and stuff that
Yeah.
this will use.
So it's an assembly, and it gives you the ability to control parallax and various adjustments and viewing through the camera itself in the viewport. So it's a good tool to get. It's on Exchange. I like that. There you go. That we can get this type of stuff. I think one of the advantages of something from Exchange is it's a good example of being able to react quickly to features. It's a good way to get some things out there quickly that maybe address a specific need, but aren't completely fully integrated or kind of fill a very narrow thing where time is of the essence, or maybe a narrow use case. So if you haven't gotten this on Exchange, I would go up and get it. And actually, I'm in the help file. You can under Max Communities, or where was that, Kelsey? Right there under Resources and Tools, Product Information, Exchange Apps, right there. So you can go there, and there we go. So that'll take you up to the Exchange for 3ds Max, and you can see the stuff there.
While you're talking, I was running through your help menu so that people could see how we had mentioned the user voice and some of the
Yes.
other things in the course of this conversation, and all of that's accessible through the help menu and directly from Max. So you can.
This report a problem feature goes right to Mike's cell phone. That was a joke. Everybody's like feverish. Oh,
quick, send it. So we're actually out of time at this point. So I'm sorry for there's at least another 15 questions that have shown up in the last 30 seconds or so, but we have run out of time and we have to be respectful of the swap over for our next event. So again, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out. Stay tuned. There's going to be lots of fun stuff we'll be doing over the next little while on 3ds Max. Like I say, I'll be going out and shooting some videos that I'll make sure that the community gets to see over probably sometime in January. I like to take Christmas off, so I don't work through that. And obviously, Eddie and team are working feverishly on plans for 3ds Max. So again, more coming soon. Any last words, Eddie?
I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for taking the time to join us today and post your questions or just enjoy the conversation. And I really, again, am humbled and proud to be associated with this family and be a part of it. And I'm really excited about the future and where it's going from here. So, Mike, closing thoughts?
I was gonna say, we're lucky to have you, Eddie. I just want to say that as well. And thanks for all the questions. Embarrassing them right now. And yeah, again, if you didn't get your questions in, all the feedback links are right in the product. So, please contribute in that way too. We watch and we listen.
Kelsey, anything from you?
No, thank you very much for joining. Appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Chris, last parting words.
3ds Max customers are the best. We have the best customer base. You guys continually challenge me. I know this is a meet the experts, but it's a big family and there's a lot of smart people, and 3ds Max solves big boy problems, and we're lucky to have the customer base and the passion that we do.
And so I'll say again, thank you very much, everyone. If you do have interesting projects going on with 3ds Max, stuff that's really cool that you think people are going to go, oh my God, that's awesome, please, by all means, send me notes on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm just Sean Hendricks, all one word in both worlds. So please send me notes so I know about them. Maybe I can see about getting them a little publicity. So thank you again. See you, everybody.